Welcome back. This is Rich again, back for an exclusive YouTube video blog. Today's YouTube video blog is about the Boston Bruins 2011 Stanley Cup Championship run. Tell you how they got to win the Stanley Cup in 2011. But first, these important messages of interest. Don't forget to listen to Crystal's Time Machine each and every Friday and Saturday night from 9 to 11 p.m. on WCAP 980, where everybody gets it. You can't catch the show live. Listen to podcasts exclusively on archive.org. Goes back to October 2015. Follow Crystal on Twitter at Crystal Amy John and Machine Crystal. Follow her on Instagram at Crystal Johnson. Follow her on Facebook, the official Crystal's Time Machine Facebook page, the official Crystal's Time Machine group page, and Game Show fan page. And follow Crystal on YouTube at Crystal Johnson, one exclusive video a week. And follow me on Twitter at Chewy7. Follow me on Instagram at Rich So. Follow me on YouTube at Rich So, 2 exclusive videos a week. And say hello to Broadway Pizza, the official sponsor of Crystal's Time Machine. If you say the promo code Crystal's Time Machine, $2 off your meal, okay? And now on to the feature presentation. This YouTube video blog I'm doing, which is exclusively on YouTube, is about the Boston Bruins 2011 Stanley Cup Championship. 13 years ago today, when I'm recording this video on June 15th, 2011, the Boston Bruins beat the Vancouver Canucks 4-0 to take the Stanley Cup home 4-3, and it was the first time in 39 years the Boston Bruins won Lord Stanley's Cup, and was the first and only Stanley Cup championship in my lifetime that the Boston Bruins have won, because I was born in 1976. The Bruins won Stanley Cups in 1929, 1939, 1941, 1970, and 1972. And I was not around for them. I was born in 1976, but I was too young to remember them in the Stanley Cup losing it in 1977 and 78 to their most hated rivals, the Montreal Canadiens. But I do remember the Boston Bruins getting swept in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Stanley Cup finals against the Edmonton Oilers in 1988. They had no chance of beating the Oilers in 1988 because they had Wayne Gretzky, and also they had Mark Messier, Gary Curry, Glenn Anderson, Kevin Love, Steve Smith, and Grant Fuhrer in net. Even though the Bruins had Ray Bourque and Cam Neely, Rick Middleton, Ken Linsman, Andy Mogretty, Lemelin, there was no chance they would beat the Oilers in 1988. In 1990, the Boston Bruins had the best record in National Hockey League in the regular season, the President's Trophy. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. This was Ray Bourque's best year. He finished second in Hart Trophy voting. They had Cam Neely and a lot of other role players and Andy Morgan net. And they breezed through the playoffs, beating Hartford Whalers, Montreal Canadiens, and Washington Capitals. But they ended up facing off against the Edmonton Oilers. They still had Mark Messier and Glenn Anderson and Gary Curry and Kevin Love, and they had Bill Ranford in net, who used to play for the Bruins, and he won the Conn Smythe when he beat the Bruins 4-1. I was disappointed. I cried when they lost it, because this was probably the best chance the Bruins had to win the Stanley Cup. And then they waited 21 years to get back to the Stanley Cup final. The Boston Bruins won the Northeast Division in 2010-2011 season. They were the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They beat the Montreal Canadiens in 7 games. They were down 2-0, and a lot of experts says the Canadiens were going to sweep the Bruins out of the playoffs. And the Bruins fought back, and they beat them in overtime. And then the Bruins faced off against the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round, and they swept the Flyers out of the playoffs 4 straight games. And this was revenge for what the Flyers did to the Bruins a year before in the 2010 Stanley Cup Finals, Eastern Conference semifinals. The Bruins were up 3-0, but the Flyers beat the Bruins 4 straight, and that was that took a toll on the Bruins. But they bounced back the next year, and then they faced off against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which they were a young team back then. They had Steven Stamkos and Martin St. Louis and Vincent LeCavalier and a young Victor Hedman and a net journeyman goaltender Dwayne Wolston. And the Bruins had a 7-game series, and they fought tooth and nail with them. The Bruins just eked it out, winning the Prince of Wales Trophy. And then they faced off against the Vancouver Canucks, who were loaded with talent in 2011. They won the President's Trophy. They had the Sedin twins, Ryan Kesler, Alexander Burrows, Roberto Luongo, and so many others. The Bruins were stacked as well. They had Dana Chara, they had Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, Rich Peverley, Daniel Paille, Chris Kelly, David Krejci, Johnny Wojciech, Adam McQuaid, and in net they had Tim Thomas, who was an all. He basically was the star of the Bruins during that playoff run. The Canucks went up 2-0 in the series, beating the Bruins the first 2 games, but they were very close. And then the Bruins on home ice advantage at the TD Garden in Game 3 and 4 beat up on the Canucks, and it was a series. And then the Canucks went back to the Rogers Center to win Game 5, and the Canucks were only 1 win away to bring back home the Stanley Cup to Canada for the first time in 1994. But the Bruins beat the Canucks on home ice in Game 6, and then that set up Game 7, and the Bruins dominated that game for the Canucks against the Canucks 4-0. And I never thought that the Canucks would lose to the Bruins, because they were probably the more talented team in 2011 than the Bruins. And the Canucks were probably the best Canadian NHL-based team that had a chance to win the Stanley Cup ever since the last time a Canadian-based NHL team won the Stanley Cup, the Montreal Canadiens, back in 1993. But it was, not meant to be for the Canucks. The Bruins brought home the Stanley Cup to Boston. The Duck Boats got ready. Tim Thomas won the Conn Smythe Trophy. And also, Zdeno Chara lifted the Stanley Cup the highest it's ever been. It was the tallest player in NHL history. Ever since the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011, they've been to the finals, the Stanley Cup Finals in 2013, losing to 6 games to the Chicago Blackhawks. In 2019, they lost 7 games to the St. Louis Blues. But they won 3 President's Trophies. 2014, 2020, and 2023, but unfortunately, they have not. They did not make the Stanley Cup Finals those years. But history tells you, recently, when a team, NHL team, has the best record, it wins the President's Trophy, a couple of years after, they'll win the Stanley Cup. Could the Bruins win the Stanley Cup in 2025? It's a good possibility, and I hope they win another one in my lifetime. So that's about it on that. I'll be back for an exclusive YouTube video blog soon. Bye now.